there's a phenomenon taking the Jewish world, and specifically the Hasidic world, I would have to say, Sayelis and Lubavitchers, and I don't know so much about the Litvish world, but for sure, Hasidic world, by storm, where we're watching a lot of videos from specifically Jordan Peterson, but many other such names. I guess it's not anything new necessarily. It was already happened. There's a story of the Rebbe where there was a shliach, and he started, reading Nietzsche and all these other philosophies. I guess Carl Jung, possibly Freud, and he started wearing a short jacket. He started becoming a little more lax in his Yiddishkeit. He had a yechidus with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him, everything you're searching for, everything you're looking for is already found in our Torah. You don't need to go to a poisoned well. You don't need to go to a dirt. I'm paraphrasing this, the first part, the poisoned well and everything. You don't need to go outside of what we have. We already have it all. We have the source of it all. You don't need to, play a poor game of broken telephone to listen to the spiritual wisdom. We have the source. We have the MS. We don't need to go there. Anyway, that withstanding, that precursor. Is this a good thing or a bad thing, the fact that we're listening to all these, dare I say, inspirational talks from other people? Okay. Now, I'm very complicit in all of this, by the way, as well. Me personally, I listen to plenty of Jordan Peterson. I listen to plenty of Thomas Sowell, not so much. He's not, different category. But plenty of things on Carl Jung. All these other philosophies, lots of things on Nietzsche. So, I guess the question which we have to really ask ourselves is, how do we conceptualize what we're listening to? And I think a very clear distinction has to be made. And this is going to come from the words of Chazal. It says you're allowed to learn secular wisdom from Goyim. In fact, it says if you say Goyim don't have any secular wisdom, I don't know if they say you're a heretic, but they look down upon it. You have to say Goyim have wisdom, secular wisdom, as we see from the case of Yisroi, where Yisroi, who was a priest of every Avodah Zarah you could ever dream of, comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and starts telling him how to run his camp. About the judges, how to structure your court system. So it says, but then in other places it says you're not allowed to learn from Goyim whatsoever. You have to ignore what they say, and then you're not even allowed to look in their books. So what do you mean? I thought you said this Chachman Goyim. And the answer is, if it's secular wisdom, we're allowed to learn it, and we have to appreciate it. We have to appreciate what the Goyim come to teach us, all the secular wisdom. If it's spiritual wisdom, we have to stay far, 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 far away. You're not even allowed to pick up their books, because either you're going to get drawn in and sucked in, and look at what's, and then chas v'shalom takes you off the path of Torah, or it's nothing but a simple waste of time. Even if you don't, the only heter which you have to learn spiritual goyish wisdom is if you're mamish looking to save a neshama, and you mamish need a very big rebbe to tell you that this is your mission in life, or this is you have a stamp of approval. Rabbi Emanuel Shochat is one of the famous ones who was given the rebbe specifically told he not only allowed to but should go on and work with people, get them out of these cults. But anyway, I digress. We're discussing Jordan Peterson. So one of Jordan Peterson's favorite tales is about Marduk. Marduk was a Mesopotamian god who had eyes all around his head, and he fought chaos itself and won and created the world out of that. This is the story, so the legend goes. And every single year they had a ceremony in Mesopotamia where they take the king, who was supposed to be the Marduk, they schlepped him out into the forest, which is chaos, or the fields outside of the walls of the city, and they'd ask him, they'd humiliate him and ask him how he was about Marduk, etc., etc. I don't have to get into the whole ceremony and all the shtusim v'havalim of the Goyim. But I noticed a very interesting correlation. I'm getting this from Masechtas Avodah Zarah, Daf Chaf Amud Beis, but it's brought up many times in the writings in the Gemara about how the Malach HaMavis says you're not allowed to look upon a beautiful woman or animals when they're in the process of mating. And it says, even if you have eyes, even if your eyes are full, like the Malach HaMavis, still, You're not allowed to gaze upon such things. So the Gemara gives a very practical answer. Ich weiß nicht, if your job is to work in the market, and in the market there's a bunch of Matznius photos all over the place, you have to work in Times Square, even then you're not, so you can say, I'm an onius, I can't, I have to look, where am I supposed to look? Even then you're not allowed to gaze upon it, you're not allowed to ponder upon it, you should just try to, there's actually a story of the Maharash, where the Maharash had he had to have a lot of meetings with Russian dignitaries because he fought tooth and nail against the pogroms. Pogroms in Russia were not some spontaneous act of evil that had just sporadically happened. They were organized riots against Jews, to specifically raid and pillage Jewish communities because the Russian government was abysmal and disgusting, like they were back then, even before communism, they are now, even after communism, they are again, even after communism. Evil, 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 horrible, horrible, horrible country. They're literally called Russians. But anyway, the government, the king, the Tsar, when there was too much internal pressure mounting because of political reasons, because they treated their Nebuch the serfs, they treated their people like worse than dirt. So eventually, they have to find a release, and they don't want them to turn against the nobility and the people in power. So instead, they use a Jewish scapegoats. Instead of using your pitchforks and torches and making riots against the duke, or the pirates as we called them, come, let's go kill a few Jews and you'll be happy. So the Rebbe Maharash, whose birthday is coming up tomorrow, or 2 days, he actually fought tooth and nail against these policies, which brought him into a lot of places, which unfortunately, not the highest spiritual realms, to say the least. And he went one time with it was a Litvish Rav, an Eilamish Rav, which he worked with. By that point already, we don't know this, we don't realize it, but the Litvishers are, the precursors to Masnagdim, post-Masnagdim, and the Hasidim had already made a truce, and that's because you can't be busy fighting each other when you have a much, much, much larger threat, there being Haskalah on the horizon. So Hasidim and Masnagdim conjoined, and they were actually very close. Anyway, so they went into one of these ministers who was in charge of the Russian court. They went into his office. Along the wall, there was 2 rules. Number one, you had to take off your hat or yarmulke or whatever, you can't have anything on your head. And that when you walk in, it was a sign of respect. And number 2, there were, along the walls, painted throughout his whole office, and right behind him, there were these massive photos of Pashut, Avodah Zarah, and Pritzos. Naked angels depicted as humans, and crosses and saints and all the schmutz of the world. Mamish, all the schmutz of the world. And you're talking about Russia, you're talking about a Russian minister who was creating policies for murdering Jews. So you had Avodah Zarah, Shvichach Damim, and Gilai Rayas all in the same room. But anyway, I digress. So they walk into, so they come in, and they have no choice. This is Pashas Acharas Nefashos, he didn't have to be saved. So they walk in, they have to take off their hats and their yarmulkes, and they do. Both the Chassidish Rav and both the Litvish Rav and the Rebbe Maharash take off their yarmulkes. And they walk inside, and Nebuch, this poor Litvish Rav, he was mamish like somebody, like the Gemara says, if somebody finds himself sitting in a place surrounded by the eyes of the angel, like the angel of death, which means you can't look anywhere. So the guy doesn't know where to look, this Litvish Rav, and he's trying to look anywhere but the walls, and without being disrespectful to the minister. He's trying to, pretend to scratch his head, so he at least has some sort of yarmulke on his head. Rebbe Maharash is sitting there like he's on the beach, no problems at all, sitting there, looking right at the man, no yarmulke on his head, not trying to pretend to put it out, whatever, nothing, garnished. Anyway, they have their meeting, however it goes, and they walk out. When they're walking out of the building, the Eilamish Rav asks the Rebbe Maharash, I don't understand, how do you sit so calmly in a place like that, looking at the walls, not worrying about a yarmulke? I don't understand. So Maharash says, come, I want to show you something. Rebbe Maharash was wearing glasses. He takes off his glasses. He said, try looking through these. The guy puts them on. You couldn't see your own nose in front of your face. It was so blurry. It was mamish. Forget about highest prescription glasses. These were glasses, never mind, not one single thing you could see through them. So, that was that. That's how the Rebbe Maharash could look around the room. He wasn't seeing anything. It was so blurry. Then, the Rebbe Maharash says about the yarmulke. Rebbe Maharash went and he grabbed the top of his hair. He pulled up a little bit and he showed him he was wearing a toupee. The top of his hair, it wasn't his actual hair. It looked like his hair, but it wasn't. It was actually a type of wig, a toupee, a male wig. President Trump could probably find you a good one. But anyway, so So he was actually wearing a yarmulke the whole time because he had a hair covering. It doesn't look like it perhaps, but he was actually wearing something on his head that wasn't his hair. That's a story about being surrounded by eyes. I digress. Where am I going with all of this? Let's bring it all back around. Jordan Peterson essentially always loves to bring up this god Marduk. Marduk is described as speaking magic words and having eyes all around his head, who sees everything. Just like the Malach HaMaves, which means we're mamish, if you're going to take their spirituality from them, we're mamish learning to worship the Malach HaMaves. And we say Malach HaMaves, who Samach Mem, who Satan, who Yetzirah, all one name. It's all the same principle. So the devil worship, Kimuven Begam Pashat. Okay? And that's why we have to be so careful not to take any of their spirituality. A good place to listen to all their nonsense is inside the bathroom. Because in the bathroom, with all the schmutz, you could add the schmutz there too. Now, again, we have to be, there is a place for the psychological tools where they could perhaps help us appreciate getting our lives in order, sorting our lives out, getting practical motivation to go out into the world and do things. There is room for that, I feel, in my humble opinion. However, again, achiluk min hakotza el hakotza, that you're not allowed to take any spiritual advice from them. The same holds true for other Yidden. L'mashal, Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is a wonderful individual. He does amazing work. We should continue to listen to him. He's not Torah. Befedish, not Torah. I had a story where I was listening to my halacha class. I was, trying to get my smicha done eventually one day, B'ezras Hashem, and I was listening to halacha and I had to use the bathroom. I wanted something to listen to in the bathroom. Can't listen to halacha in the bathroom, chas v'sholom. So I went to my YouTube and I happened to be in the middle of a Dennis Prager talk. I said, perfect for the toilet, because we have to appreciate. He might say a lot of Torah ideas, he might bring things down, etc., etc. Amazing. Not Torah. Not close but no cigar. As it says in Tanya, if it's 99% true, it's 100% false. And this is the approach which we have to take. Same approach with Zionism, by the way. The only Zionism which I feel you get to be is an Americana Zionist. You want to be Americana Zionist, go be my guest. We have to be very careful with Zionism. Again, watch my words carefully. We have to, this was the opinion of the Rebbes. This is why the Rebbes didn't get behind Zionism full force. They worked with them, they have to understand the realities, but again, we are not, as Chabad, we are not Zionists in the classical term. Zionist is a secular state developed by secular people. In fact, in their charter, the Zionists specifically put the words, they didn't put Hashem, didn't put God, didn't put Eibishter, didn't put Elikim, didn't put Kel, didn't put nothing. They put, quote, Tzur Yisrael. That was, there was a fight. There was a fight about putting Hashem's name in the inception of the state of Israel. And they wrote Tzur Yisrael. And the moment, and they made sure when they came out, they made sure to say and to specifically specify, Tzur Yisrael doesn't mean Hashem, doesn't mean God, doesn't mean because you could, we do have phrases where we say Hashem is our rock. It says Tzur Yisrael means the collective experience of the Jewish people throughout history. Just some secular kind of, culture. Baruch Hashem, in the name of culture, we have murdered so many people so far. Anyway, I digress. My digression for my digression. The important part is, remember, all of these ideas, all of these concepts are useful tools, but not emes, not what we base our premise on, not what we allow our thinking to be, not what we allow to appreciate as divine. It is not divine, it is not Torah. Just to wrap it all up and to tie it in a bow, just because it's interesting, which I think essentially comes from, perhaps you could say one schism between secular ideas or Goyish ideas versus Torah ideas, that actually ties in quite nicely to this. In going back to the Mesopotamian tradition, their Goyish Avodah Zarah ritual, where they also brought out all their idols, don't worry. After this king, who was supposed to be their monarch, which is, a representation of their god, showed how, his humiliation, then there was a whole ceremony where he goes and he fights. It's supposed to be, some big monster, and wraps up chaos, and whatever, etc., etc. And then, what's the reward for all of his work? He gets, a zayna. a harlot, a prostitute. That was the end, and he goes with the prostitute, and it's also part of the story as well, where says all the gods came to Marduk and said, we have a big problem with chaos, he's this beast, and they're going to destroy us, and Marduk said, so if you want me, I'll fight the demon and I'll win the demon, but you have to listen to me from then on. All ego-based. It's all ego-based. And it's an appreciation for, I'm being good because I get something out of it. It's the same thing, they have the same thing in the Christian tradition about the virgin, and then the king goes with the virgin. It's the same idea. It's all the same idea. Goodness, this is where, again, so sorry to bring so many concepts, dump so many concepts on you in one short thing, but these are deep points. Chesed l'umim mechatas. Goyim says, even when in the first parak of Tanya, even when a non-Jew is doing kindness, even when a Goy is doing kindness, it's for his own benefit, it says. It's even that is a sin, Whereas Yidden, we have to learn, we have to appreciate this. It's within our nature, it's part of our teva, but we also have to appreciate doing goodness for the sake of goodness. We're not good because we get the virgin. We're not good because we get to, all the pleasures of the world. We are good because Hashem said so, and because we have to be good because since Hashem said so, and being good is being good on its own. And there's no, again, it's not about the rewards. It's never about the rewards, And hence the story with the Alter Rebbe, where the Alter Rebbe had ksavim, he had writings, and he said, anybody who breaks the privacy of these writings, a ban and ostracism on this world and a ban on the world to come, loses his world to come, nothing, garnished. Anyway, there was a fire in Lubavitch, or not Lubavitch at the time, wherever they were, where Chabad was at the time, and those writings got burnt. And the Alter Rebbe says, no, who read those writings? I need you to recreate them for me. All the Hasidim looked, the Alter Rebbe dumbfounded. Rebbe, you said a ban in this world, a ban in the next world. How on earth could we ever read those right? What do you mean? And the Alter Rebbe's response was, where is the self-sacrifice for learning Torah? Anyway, I think that encapsulates our difference. We are good because we're good, because we're good, because we're good. We don't be good because, I can get something. And in fact, if you're going to be good in order to get something, that's a surest path to misery you could imagine. You have to be good with, have to do good with your hand completely removed from it. I'm doing good because this is a principle of mine, this is what I do. Not because, I might get something, Anyway, hope you have a wonderful time. And Mashiach now.